virtual appointment with a representative using Sagicor eConnect to discuss your life insurance or Sagicor Lifestyle Approved Retirement Scheme. The time by Sagicor eConnect is
just about 7:01 a.m.
Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in a new year. Well, at least according to the Gregorian calendar. A blessed 2026 to you. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us by the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, is technology actually harming students' focus and memory? Is technology actually harming students or student focus and memory? And in second watch, examining the rise in female teens having multiple sex partners. For our social media question, we ask, why do you think some teens engage in multiple sexual relationships? Share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp, 876-997-3125, using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your response later on the program. But first, here's iQuote.
All right, good morning. Today's iQuote says, why do you think... Sorry, that's the social media question. Here's the quick quote.
Yes,
if you forget where you came from, you'll never find your way home. And this one is from Nelson Mandela.
Very fitting. Very fitting indeed, especially in this new year. Good morning, Jacal.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Same to you, sir. Same to you. I hope you're doing well so far in this new year, and wishing... Well, hoping and praying for you all the best for 2026.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you, sir. The first watch will be back after this break.
Tuesday, January 13, on The Rock, join guests Carrie Morrison and Minister Donna Hughes Stewart as they continue the deep dive into African spirituality and its connection to the Christian walk. How should Christians of African descent relate to our so-called spiritual African roots? What exactly are these religions, and how can we recognize the differences? In part 2, they go further, exploring spiritual symbols, traditions, and the ways in which African spirituality intersects with Christianity and modern life. Plus, in the Now Time Revelations feature, they look at the recent discussion around Dr. Carrie Turner Bryant's dress and Pastor Jamal Bryant's public defense. Beyond opinions, what does this moment stir in us spiritually? What does it reveal about the church today? Don't miss this enlightening, challenging, and necessary conversation on The Rock, Tuesday, January 13 at 10 a.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Where are the campus nights? Students are stop up in a price.
On
On the next Campus Connection, we will focus on a fresh outlook part 2. The new year presents the opportunity for a revitalized perspective, viewpoint, and attitude towards something. We are able to step out of old patterns to see things with new eyes. You are invited to join the conversation with Ms. Tashona N. Mullings, social development practitioner and owner of Next Step Training and Social Impact Consulting, Ms. Sharika Williams, assistant prayer coordinator of UWI UCCF, and Ms. Samoya Russell, UTech School of Engineering Spiritual Development Coordinator. And don't miss our honorary feature with Mr. Eric Cunningham, second-year physics student at the Micro University College. Campus Connection is proudly brought to you by Live Good Anti-Violence Campaign from the Ministry of National Security and Peace. Tune in on Tuesday, January 13 at 5:30 p.m. on Love 101, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm Stokeley Marshall. Recently, Lynn Vern Wright, president of the Jamaica Association of Principals in Secondary Schools, raised concerns that gadgets like phones, tablets, and laptops may be doing more harm than good in our classrooms. He argues that instead of boosting learning, these tools can distract students, weaken traditional skills like handwriting, and mislead us into thinking progress is happening when it might not be. But that's just one perspective. Is technology actually harming students' focus and memory, or are gadgets an essential part of modern education that we just haven't harnessed well yet? Well, our guests to discuss this, we have Nadine Matthews Blair, AI and digital transformation educator, consultant, executive coach, CEO of Crescent Advisory Group. We also have Professor Knut Thompson, Professor of Educational Policy, Planning and Leadership. Professor Thompson and Mrs. Matthews Blair, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Marshall. Good morning, Mr. Thompson. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Good morning. How are you?
Well, thanks.
Great.
Well, let us start with you, Professor Thompson. Is technology actually harming students' focus and memory, or are the gadgets an essential part of modern education that we just haven't harnessed well yet, Professor Thompson?
Yeah. Well, I think both things can be true, and I think both things are true. And the stage at which we introduce gadgets to youngsters can harm their development of, or can undermine the development of certain skills. The research shows that learning to form letters of the alphabet, that process is critical for brain development, for memory, for reasoning, for critical thinking. Learning to spell the word is also part of the process of developing certain foundational skills. So if the tablet or the whatever other gadget with a keyboard is introduced to the child too early, the child will not learn to develop the skills of reasoning, of spelling, and so on. But gadgets are also part of the modern classroom, modern system of development, and so students will benefit from having access to computers and other sources of information for research, for preparation of their various tasks, and so on. So it's a question of when it's introduced, how extensively it is used. Last thing I'll say before I hand off to my colleague is that the research also shows that too much time with a screen can affect vision, and so a lot of care has to be taken and can also affect the child's capacity to develop deep personal relationships with other human beings.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to ask Mrs. Matthews Blair to hold just for a moment, because Professor Thompson, in your capacity as Professor of Educational Policy, Planning and Leadership, and in your role as Pro Vice Chancellor for Undergraduate Studies at the University of the West Indies, do you have any concerns in relation to children too young using these gadgets, and then later on when they are to matriculate to the tertiary level, having been so accustomed to using these gadgets from an early stage, maybe they didn't develop some of the skills you mentioned earlier on, how will that impact their learning and education at the tertiary level? Do you have any concerns there, sir?
A lot of concerns there. Let's come back to the question of reasoning, of critical thinking. A university education depends on the student's ability to reason and think critically. So if those foundational skills are not acquired at the early stages, then the ability to build on a foundation and to launch a career, launch an education becomes problematic. Among the things we're seeing with our students at the university, and this is a problem across the world, is that students are failing or not doing as well as they could at certain basic subjects. So we have a problem in mathematics. And that too, the whole question of being able to form numbers and to solve problems mathematically is part of the consideration.
Yeah.
So we see at the CSEC level, for example, where the performance of our students is creating increasing concern, and those problems which they manifest in problem solving at the CSEC level get carried forward to the university level, to the tertiary level.
Yes.
And so what are we seeing? Lower levels of innovation, higher levers of repeat, and students being unable to construct very simple sentences in some cases. As this research has shown, at the CSEC level, students' ability and the pre-CSEC level, students' ability to recognize a simple sentence and to interpret that sentence. There are stories and cases of that being a major concern because of the students' inability to reason and to read. Right? So reasoning is foundational to academic success at the tertiary level. And so how we treat that from the early stages will have to be part of the national development agenda.
Interesting, Professor Thompson. Thank you so much. Nadine Matthews Blair, I know that we're upon a break, but you could start by responding, and we could, of course, hear more of your response after the break. Mrs. Matthews Blair, any response?
Yes, good morning. So Professor Thompson has raised points that I'm in agreement with. The challenge is unmanaged technology in the classroom.
Unmanaged?
Yes.
Unmanaged
And I
technology?
think we have to be clear about that because
Mrs. Matthews Blair, because I realize you're going to say quite a bit about unmanaged technology, or I think you will.
Yes, I will.
Just hold that thought because we're now upon a break.
Sure.
Listeners and viewers, please stay with us. A very important discussion. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
You ever
hear earthquake call and say, hello, Miss Lee, yes, it's me, earthquake, I coming Tuesday around 10. No, sir. Earthquake does arrive unannounced. And when it comes, it shake all sense and sensibility out of way. Remain calm, stay inside, and do the DCH. Drop, hover, hold on. Once the shaking starts, you know it's earthquake. Make a quick move to a safe place. Don't run to the door, we are any exit. Stairs might block up or full of people. Elevator, avoid that because you might get in and poof, power gone, and you're stuck in that box without air. Drop, hover, hold on.
A message from the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management.
As a contractor, I never work without a plan.
As an electrician, protection is always a priority.
If you're a small business owner or an independent contractor, there's a plan that gives you protection and coverage. Sagicor Pro Shield. Get up to $1 million critical illness coverage and cover up to 80% of your medical costs for as little as $15,510 every 3 months. Get the protection you need with Sagicor Pro Shield. Call 876-936-7784. Conditions apply.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the first watch, and the topic is technology actually harming student focus and memory? Our guests are Mrs. Nadine Matthews-Blair, AI and digital transformation educator, consultant, executive coach, CEO of Crescent Advisory Group, Chief Executive Officer of Crescent Advisory Group. We also have Professor Knut Thompson, Professor of Educational Policy, Planning and Leadership, Pro Vice Chancellor for Undergraduate Studies at University of the West Indies. Now, Professor Thompson, of course, the question I had posed was, is technology actually harming student focus and memory? And another question which I posed, which was, are our gadgets an essential part of modern education that we just haven't harnessed well yet? And Professor Thompson responded. Now we're having the responses of Mrs. Matthews-Blair, or the response of Mrs. Matthews-Blair. And in your response, Madam, you mentioned the whole matter or issue of unmanaged technology. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Yes, I think we have to be clear about that both these things can be true at the same time, as Professor Thompson said. However, unmanaged technology really is the problem. And I'll bring into focus the example of Singapore, which from an academic standpoint has ranked the top of the PISA standard for science, mathematics, and literacy. And they have integrated technology into the classrooms as early as the 1990s. I was able to hear the Prime Minister talk about having access to a computer in the classroom, although he didn't have one at home. And so managing how you use technology and the types of access that the students have and what they're using it for is what's important. We cannot afford to completely ban technology. Smartphone bans, the science is clear on that in terms of that not being useful at all. However, our children still need to be literate, numerate, but also digitally literate. And so if I'm to take the Singapore example forward, in addition to having the highest scores on international education standards, they are also a very digitally literate society. From a GDP standpoint, their digital economy is 20% of their GDP. It grows at 2x faster than the normal economy, and persons who are digitally literate also earn higher incomes. So I want to be careful that we don't pit teacher training against technology access, because both are actually important in order for us to prepare our students for the digital world that still exists, but also so that we can become more economically competitive. Because when we look at the countries that punch above their weight, their participation and their use of technology is always significantly higher. So what I want to see is better management of technology, still focus on giving access to our students. They should not be seeing a computer, learning about AI when for the first time when they get to university or hit the workforce. And then I also want to see what Mr. Wright was talking about, which is investing heavily in our teachers. In Singapore, because digital literacy is also core to math and reading, they also invest a lot in terms of bringing educators up to speed in terms of the digital technology as well.
Well, Professor Thompson, in light of what Mrs. Matthews Blair has just said, I don't know if you have any thoughts in terms of where do teachers fit into this, because should we invest more in training educators? And, of course, some would argue, should we also be investing more in devices, these very same gadgets? So maybe, well, you could even add to that. How do you measure? How do you strike a balance, the right balance?
Sure.
Professor Thompson.
Thank you. I think we're on the same page that it's a question of timing, it's a question of management. Both things are true, as we have said. So the question then becomes, how do we strike the balance, as you have suggested? So now, alongside the example of Singapore, is the example of Finland I would want to raise. In Finland, in 2024, I think it was, or might have been last year, the government took the decision that they would revert to books, traditional books, as the point of initial introduction to education. So having, like Singapore, done exceedingly well in PISA and other metrics of educational success, the government recognized that there were problems in the areas of reasoning, interpersonal relationships, and problem solving, and they projected that were these initial problems that the research had been uncovering were to increase, and the prospect is that they would get worse in the coming years. They recognize that to combat that, they need to revert to books at the point of initial introduction to education. And so Singapore is no longer using the computers at the early levels as it used to. It hasn't abandoned it. And this is instructive to note. So both things have to be held in tension. Before I come to the question of teacher training, let me make a simple point about my own pedagogical practice as a lecturer. I always say to my students, make sure you walk with your smartphones to class and connect to the internet or your laptops, because I'm going to ask you questions that you need to research in real time, and you're also to be fact checking what I'm telling you in real time. And so these devices, so it's not even so much the devices themselves, but access to sources of information as part of the learning process is a critical part of the preparation of our students, whether they are teachers or engineers or doctors. So one of the things that now need to happen in our teachers' colleges, and I remember speaking at one of the events recently and emphasized that the most critical, or one of the most critical competences that our teachers need to acquire is the ability to help students to develop their reasoning and their probing and their questioning skills, all right? To challenge them to doubt, to dispute, and then to discuss. It is through the ability to read and interpret that they are going to be able to start doubting. because they are seeing sources of information that are conflicting. They're seeing sources of information that are providing diverse perspectives. And it is through the conflicting, divergence, the and difference of perspectives that they now begin to wonder, could that view be true? Could that also not be true? All right. So access to source of information is vital, but for them to be able to make use of those bodies of information, their foundational skills in reasoning must be developed, and that starts at the early level with being able to write the letters of the alphabet, understand phonetic sound, and to interpret single sentences that consist of 8 or 10 words.
Sounds simple, but very important, Professor Thompson. Sounds simple, but very important. I want to raise this with you, though, Professor Thompson, and before Mrs. Matthews-Blair comes in to, comment and maybe even gives the final word, because, never enough time on the morning watch. But calculators and telephone directories come to my mind, because with calculators, a level of atrophy maybe can set in mentally, where before calculators were widely used, you had to be forced to use the pen, pencil, and paper and work out what the result of an equation is, or the result of a just ordinary math or multiplication, addition, as the case may be, subtraction. But with the calculator, if you're not too careful, you kind of rely on the calculator a little bit too much. And then the telephone directory comes to mind as well, because I have seen where persons struggle with the use of the telephone directory. These are persons who are educated, but maybe, a little bit younger and maybe just leaving university or in college, that age. And, with the telephone directory, you have to be very versed on where letters come in the alphabet.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a name such as Anderson, it will come after, for instance, Alan.
Yeah.
Because L is before A.
Correct.
So little things like that. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
And don't have to Mrs. Matthews-Blair. 2 things. 1, I challenge you. Most of the numbers in your contact list,
yes,
you do not know by heart.
And I used to remember numbers by heart.
You used to.
Yes.
So what the phone has done, it has undermined your memory capacity.
Yes.
Because you have become dependent on it. That's the same thing in education.
Yes.
Where people have access to information and can go back to it, they don't retain it. So taking notes in class by hand, research has shown that taking notes in class helps memory as against typing as the lecturer goes. And finally, I've had stories of students who are asked to calculate something. They get the wrong answer and they don't know it's wrong because they have not developed the arithmetic competences to know that 4 by whatever is so. So they touch 7 on the calculator and don't recognize that the number is wrong because they thought they touched 4.
Yes.
Over.
Mrs. Matthews-Blair, we literally have seconds left. In a couple of seconds, and if you have any final thoughts you want to leave with us.
Balance is important and sequencing is important. We would not introduce the calculators when children are first learning arithmetic. However, without the calculator, we would not have learned advanced math and calculus, and which has served as a foundation for many of the things we're using today, including AI. So again, it's not either or, it's both. However, there have to be standards and rigor in terms of how we manage.
Mrs. Matthews-Blair, only because of time we have to leave it there, but we are hearing it loud and clear. I want to thank both of you, Mrs. Matthews-Blair and Professor Thompson, for a very interesting conversation. And we need to have more conversations like this. I want to thank the both of you for your time and for your thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Good morning.
Listeners and viewers, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Start your journey with a JN Small Business Loan with small business loans as little as $10,000 and up to $4 million. The time by JN Small Business Loan is
7:30.
Managing your investments with Sagicor is now easy as ever. You can fund stocks, repos, and do more seamlessly. Even get a clear overview of your portfolio performance on the enhanced Sagicor eBank platform. Want to experience effortless investment banking on Sagicor eBank? It's as easy as ever. Contact your Sagicor Investment Wealth Advisor today and update your personal information for access. Call 888-SAGICOR or visit sagicor.com for more information.
Start your day informed, alert, and ahead of the curve. Join us at 6:30 a.m. for the latest breaking news, weather updates, and everything you need to know. Clear, concise, connected. It's your morning news right here on Love 101 FM, the family station. On Mondays, the morning news is brought to you by the Ministry of National Security Live Good Anti-Violence Campaign.
Tuesday, January 13, on The Rock, join guests Carrie Morrison and Minister Donna Hughes-Stewart as they continue the deep dive into African spirituality and its connection to the Christian walk. How should Christians of African descent relate to our so-called spiritual African roots? What exactly are these religions and how can we recognize the differences? In part 2, they go further, exploring spiritual symbols, traditions, and the ways in which African spirituality intersects with Christianity and modern life. Plus, in Now Time Revelations feature, they look at the recent discussion around Dr. Carrie Turner Bryant's dress and Pastor Jamal Bryant's public defense. Beyond opinions, what does this moment stir in us spiritually? What does it reveal about the church today? Don't miss this enlightening, challenging, and necessary conversation on The Rock, Tuesday, January 13 at 10 a.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Let's take a look now at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And we have here in the Gleaner. Well, this item of news, massive. Well, let me read it from the opening headline. Bullets bonanza. Massive ammo seizure from licensed firearm holder arrested amid SSL probe. This story by Laverne Barrett. We also have on the front page of the Gleaner, new NIA boss, that is National Integrity Action, NIA, new NIA boss, stand up and be counted. Stand up and be counted. This story by Edmund Campbell. And the name of the gentleman is Dr. Gavin Myers. We have item of sad news. We have a reference to a story at page A3. The diaspora has lost an important voice, who happens to be no stranger to the Morning Watch, I should say. He is Ambassador Curtis Ward. Tributes flow after death of Jamaica's former ambassador to the United Nations, Curtis Ward. That story by Lester Hines. Condolences to Ambassador Ward's family and friends. We now turn to the Daily Observer. We have here on the front page, no one above the law. FNID sends clear warning, nobody untouchable. Of course, FNID stands for Firearms and Narcotics Investigation Division of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. That story by Jason Cross. And we have reference to a story at page 3 of the Daily Observer mentioned on the front page of the same newspaper. 7,420 road deaths over 20 years. 7,420 road deaths over 20 years. And another bit of news here, which will, of course, mean a lot to persons who have suffered damage from Hurricane Melissa. We're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. NSWMA appeals for patience, says teams working night and day clearing Melissa debris. That story by Renee Osborne. Those and many other stories in our various news sources. Coming up next, we'll share some of the feedback from our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp question, which is, why do you think some teens engage in multiple sexual relationships? If you haven't done so yet, leave your response in our Facebook or YouTube. Love 1FM Jamaica Live, Love 101 FM Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes to 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
On the next mailbox, we will be rocking to the beat and dancing to the tune of A New Sound Part 2. A new sound often refers to musical projects reimagining classics or cultural shifts, creating fresh genres involving new techniques, instruments, or emotional tones, reflecting innovation and breaking from the past into music and media. It signifies sonic evolution, whether through genre fusion, advanced sound design, or cultural expression. You are invited to join the conversation with our special guest, Jamaican-born gospel producer, audio engineer, and songwriter, Canute Neil Ellis, as he shares on the evolution in gospel music. That's Wednesday, January 14 at 5:30 p.m. only on the family station. Love 101, the mailbox, Monday.
Tuesday, January 13, on The Rock, join guests Carrie Morrison and Minister Donna Hughes Stewart as they continue the deep dive into African spirituality and its connection to the Christian walk. How should Christians of African descent relate to our so-called spiritual African roots? What exactly are these religions and how can we recognize the differences? In part 2, they go further, exploring spiritual symbols, traditions, and the ways in which African spirituality intersects with Christianity and modern life. Plus, in Now Time Revelations feature, they look at the recent discussion around Dr. Carrie Turner Bryant's dress and Pastor Jamal Bryant's public defense. Beyond opinions, what does this moment stir in us spiritually? What does it reveal about the church today? Don't miss this enlightening, challenging, and necessary conversation on The Rock, Tuesday, January 13 at 10 a.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We move right into the second watch. A new study is raising serious questions about teen sexual behavior in Jamaica, including a troubling number of girls, some as young as 15, reporting multiple sexual partners. What's driving this trend? Is it social media, family structure, economic reality, or something deeper? We have as our guest today to look at this Dr. Paul Bourne, research consultant, social and political commentator, and Dominique Johnson Mitchell, social commentator. Dominique Johnson Mitchell, Dr. Paul Bourne. Good morning to you both.
Good morning and good morning to your listeners.
Good morning.
Dr. Mitchell? Yes, you're with us as well. Getting right into it, let us start. What's driving this trend? Is it social media, family structure, economic reality, or something else? And of course, we're talking about teen sexual behavior. Mention was made of a troubling number of girls, but of course, boys would have to be included as well. So, in terms of what's driving this trend, Dr. Bourne, any thoughts? What do you would like to share with us? You have done some research on this, sir?
Well, no, yes, a number of things are driving this matter, including our very culture. And when I speak about the culture, we're talking about what teens are actually seeing in terms of their homes and their environment. So that's a critical part of it. Yes, social media is actually playing a factor. Finance is also playing a factor in terms of this. But what we should understand from here is that we are saying that 59% of our teens have at least 2 sexual partners, and that is troubling.
Okay. Of both male and female.
No, we're looking at females in terms of this study. Another one in terms of males that I don't intend to release yet.
Okay, I see. So we are sort of trying to pull information out of you in relation to an unreleased study, sir.
Yeah, you are.
All right.
You are.
Okay. All right. As a female, Mrs. Mrs. Johnson Mitchell, I don't know if you would like to weigh in because you are a female, you're a woman, you're a Christian. I don't know if you have any. You're of a particular age. You're quite young, madam. I don't know if you have any thoughts you want to share with us, if you would like to weigh in on this.
Of course, I have my thoughts. Hi, Dr. Bourne. Hello, Mr. Marshall. All right, so that's a concerning figure, doctor. I'm not going to lie, 59% is extremely high, as is. And you would have touched on some of the factors that would have been used to indicate how we are able to notice that some of our females are within that type of behavior, right? And so for myself as a female, I guess you can look at it as generational gaps as well. Although you have stated that I am young, I do believe that there is now an upcoming generation beyond mine that would probably have a different mindset as it relates to relationships and integrating their natural conscience with their sexual conscience. So I feel like there are a lot of persons that right now are a little confused, or let me not say persons, but females, teenage females, who are a little confused because the adolescent stage is your real exploration stage. And sometimes that exploration involves sexual experimentation as well. So that's where I'm at with that right now. Mindset, that's where I'm at.
Well, thank you for that contribution. Dr. Paul Byrne, of course, if one looks at the Gleaner, published December 29, 2025, which is just a couple of, you could say a few weeks ago now, last year, 2025, the headline in the Gleaner reads, "Study raises alarm over sexual practices of Jamaican women. Girls researcher commits to examining behavior of local males." And of course, researcher Dr. Paul Bourne is the researcher in relation to that recent study. Now, sir, Dr. Bourne, you would have likely come across or heard of another bit of research by another academic. And in that paper, it is indicating that there is, in fact, young people the world over have significantly less sex than generations before them. I don't know if you have any thoughts to share in relation to your study versus the views of that other academic.
Well, I mean, Dr. Gay's study is not contradicting mine, neither is mine contradicting his. It's just actually making up some context as to what is going on. That what tells you something.
Dr. Herbert Gay of the UWI, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, it tells you a whole lot. Because what does it mean? I mean, and the findings are in keeping with what happens in terms of historical context, all right? When we started family planning in Jamaica,
Let me just ask you pause 1 second for the benefit of the listeners. Are you saying that Jamaica is an anomaly of sorts?
No, I'm not saying we're an anomaly.
Whilst globally, young people the world over are having significantly less sex than generations before them. At the same time, for Jamaica, it's the reverse.
No, I'm saying to you, let's look at some facts and you'll understand what Dr. Gale is really saying.
Okay, hold that thought first. Before you go there, I see where we are already upon a break. And after that, you can elaborate. And then, of course, we can have Mrs. Johnson Mitchell comment as well. Listeners and viewers, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Mama work hard, for real. She do the most to send me and my brother to school. So, the dream was always to go to university. Well, I fulfilled 2 dreams with 1 Jane Bank savings plan, I further my education and I make mama proud.
Save so you can make the park, travel far, graduate like a star.
Stop wishing you could. With your Jane Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jane Bank will help you find a way.
The best kind of insurance is the one you don't have to think about, especially when you have more on your mind. With GK General Insurance, that promise is built in branch, online, or on the app. You get quick support and results you can rely on. Every interaction is designed to help you move life forward. For all the storms you've been through, we're there for you. Call 888-429-5454 or visit gk-insurance.com. Seamless, simple, certain. One GKGI.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch, and the topic is examining the rise in female teens having multiple sex partners. Our guests are Dr. Paul Bourne, research consultant, social and political commentator, and social commentator Dominique Johnson Mitchell, Mrs. Johnson Mitchell. Just before the break, just Dr. Bourne, having heard you initially, then, of course, Mrs. Johnson Mitchell, I had posed a question to you in connection with your study in relation to Jamaica concerning girls, young girls, teenage girls, and another study by Dr. Herbert Gale of University of West Indies, where he referred to the fact that the world over, teens or young people are having, young people are having less sex. So you were about to, you said that your study doesn't conflict with his.
Yeah, it's
revealing. You were about to elaborate somewhere and elucidate for us. Take us through that, please.
All right. So we are saying people's sexual behavior is sort of always, there's an indicator of that behavior. And what is an indicator of that behavior is children, all right? Now, their sexual behavior. When you look at what happens in Jamaica, say, for example, in the 1960s up to 1970s, we were having something like 5 children per woman, all right, which was indicating to you what was going on. Today, we're having less than 2 per woman, all right? So that indicates to you, in terms of our sexual behavior, what is actually going on in the world, and Jamaica as well. So it does not necessarily mean that people are having less sex in terms of their frequency of it, but using fertility indicates to you that people are having less sex in terms of that, particularly less sex as it relates to what? Reproduction, all right? So that is somewhat of a nutshell as to what is really going on. So people are having less sex, yes. But let's look at some numbers in terms of what happens in terms of Jamaica. We found that 94% of the persons that we actually spoke to said that they were having sex, all right? And only 13% of them indicate they're having sex with one partner. So it's revealing as to what is really going on in Jamaica. And I heard Mrs. Johnson Mitchell actually spoke about in terms of the behavior and observing what is actually happening. Now, when you look at what is going on in terms of those persons who are older than the teenagers, they're having far more sex than the teenager with other partners. Those who are over 20, almost 90%. Those who are over 30, almost 98%. Those who are over 40, about 85%. So it indicates to you, so I'm saying to you, there's a culture of sex in Jamaica. But even though that there's a culture of sex, what is actually going on predominantly, particularly with those persons who are teenagers? And Ms. Johnson Mitchell rightfully mentioned that. A number of persons are confused because they are seeing a certain practice by the adults and they are confused on how do I behave as an individual? How do I express myself? How do I experiment? And all that's a part of what is really going on with teens. So a number of teens now are being initiated to actually have sex, not by teens, but by older persons, older men, older women. And sometimes they do this for economic reasons. So when you really try to understand what is really going on, it's not that Herbert Gale is saying, listen, we're having less sex, so we are safe. That's not what it really means. It means that our behavior is such that, yes, we could be having less sex in terms of having children, or people don't want children, but a part of what is actually going on with those persons who are teenagers, they're at the stage of confusion. Why are they confused? They are seeing the adults do a certain behavior, and they are trying to understand. Having watched television, having been exposed to social media, how do I express myself sexually? And that's a part where the confusion is.
Well, I'm looking at something he has here as published here in the Gleaner. That one is, of course, dated January the 11th, 2026. And, of course, that was just Sunday. And it makes reference to the following. I want to ensure that I'm quoting from the correct section. Social anthropologist at University of West Indies Europe Director Dr. Herbert Gale says that Jamaica is also seeing increased sexlessness despite a perceived increase in sexual activity as a result of more frequent showing of sexual content across various media. So he's saying that there's a perception of an increase in sexual activity when that is not so. Any thoughts on that?
Dr. Gill is my mentor. Right? He actually taught me what to do research. So he must have some value in terms of what is happening. But what I'm presenting to you now are self-reported data, national self-reported data in terms of Jamaicans, mathematically done. All right. So what we're saying is that it means a whole lot to us now, because if persons are having less sex, and we are saying that 94%, 95%, 59% of them are having multiple sexual partners, that indicates you what our generation was actually going through before them and what that generation was doing. And that explains further why a number of young people are confused. They see their adults behave in a particular way. They see it. They lived it. And now they are here confused. What do? I want a house. I want this. I want that. I'm not going to be having children. I'm not going to be doing this. But at the same time, mommy is saying to you, where's your child? You're now 20. You're now 25. Where's your child? When I was 17, I have my first one. So all that's a part of the pressure, what the young persons are going through. So a number of them are going to be withholding, definitely. And some of them that are going to be engaged are going to have multiple partners as they seek to navigate this world and being tricked by many of the persons who are adults.
Interesting. Well, the issues of the studies, they might appear on the face of it to be some divergence, but notwithstanding, what you're both saying is quite interesting. And Mrs. Johnson Mitchell, I don't know if you have any comments in relation to what Dr. Bourne has just said, because he has said quite a lot.
Yes, he has said quite a lot, but not in vain. Yeah. I believe Dr. Bourne and I will be kind of co-linking as it relates to the statements that we're about to make in regards to what the topic is. So he's spot on. I mean, not to discredit that you're already a doctor, so of course you'd be spot on with most of these details. But in the case of a socioeconomic impact that it might have on the mindset of the teenagers, in a social or societal stance, we can look at the fact that many of them would have been born to teenage parents. A few of them also have been exposed to friends who have become teenage parents. And in light of that, there can be some pressure. I mean, to the average mind, you'd be like, why would you be pressured to have a child that young and so forth and so forth? But it is easy to not feel encapsulated by that detail because we're not a part of that demographic, right? And I feel like a lot of the times, ignorance is what stems a lot of the commentary that comes from Jamaicans, because we have completely gone into this phase where we strongly believe that psychology and the psychosis of many of our Jamaicans, inclusive of teens, is taboo. So we try to stem away from the fact that we have to really integrate what happens within the demographic of each individual, right? The economic standpoint would now be as it relates to dependency. Sir Bourne touched on it. You have so many teenagers who, social media has shown them where a lot of known content creators are doing this and doing that. And the first thing they say is, oh, I'm 22 and I have a house. I have 3 cars. Da, 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 da. That pressure is so heavy on social media, so much so that persons have now aligned themselves with a timeline. So if I'm 22 and I don't have my first BMW X6, I am doing everything that is wrong. And so this is now where you find that the women, especially, or the females, will now send themselves into this spiral of how to make money or how to get to that place. And that's where we have transactional relationships coming in. The transactional relationships are oftentimes not a part of what we would consider monogamy. It involves them probably having a schoolboy boyfriend, a man that works at a big corporate company, or somebody who is overseas, and another one who can assist them with school. Somebody assists with school, somebody assists with groceries, somebody assists with getting that car that is aligned with their goals by 22. And so you have different reasons and factors, as we have been stating, as to why we are seeing an increase in especially our females having multiple partners. They have to get certain stuff, and vanity is the way to go.
Well, Mrs. Johnson, Michelle, that is more than a mouthful.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Dr. Bourne, based on the amount of partners she mentioned, I think I was counting, was it 4 persons? that young lady would have.
That was average. There's a study that that will be published possibly in the Glean in a short while that will alarm you more than that.
Well, let me change gears a little bit, because never enough time on the Morning Watch, and we are coming down to the wire here. Let us zero in a little bit, to the extent that we can, on sexually transmitted diseases, because with this level of sexual activity, whether it's increasing or decreasing, but obviously there seems to be a challenge. What does that do in terms of how you treat with persons who are likely to become ill because they are exposing themselves when they should not be exposing themselves? And unfortunately, you could even have some of these females are being Christians, attending church and knowing the golden rule, knowing what is right from what is wrong, but notwithstanding, for whatever reason, they might go astray. Dr. Bourne, before we wrap.
It's an excellent thing. I was asked a question by a good friend of mine about 2 days ago.
It's an excellent question, not an excellent thing, right?
You asked an excellent question. I mean, and I want to contextualize. All right?
You said an excellent thing.
It's an excellent question and thing. All right? So we are at a stage now where we want people to have children because we are below the 2.1 in terms of replacement fertility. All right?
Yes,
here's the challenge now that we're having. How do we say to persons you need to have more children within the context of STIs?
Yes.
Within the context that many people are having multiple sexual partners. How do we do that? And that's a challenge that we're going to be having. Now, when people becomes ill, I think there's little less taboo now if somebody actually come with HIV. Less taboo, all right? More so shocked than taboo, all right? Now, why are some persons still shocked? Because I know what persons are still...
I wasn't even getting into the taboo nature of anything, just the fact that you become ill. Might have challenges with your education, with working. You have to be focusing on, getting well, staying healthy.
And that's a part of the challenge that we're having now in Jamaica in terms of how do we say to persons...
In 2 seconds, how can all of this be addressed? In 2 seconds, because I'm getting a signal. In 2 seconds.
I don't see our challenge going to be addressed anytime simple, anytime short, because we need people to have more children within the
we need a moral revolution. That's what we need, a moral revolution.
It is the
Back to
environmental moral
basics,
revolution.
back to holiness and righteousness, right, Mrs. Johnson Mitchell? We will wrap right there for this morning watch. I want to thank Mrs. Johnson Mitchell and Dr. Bourne for this very interesting conversation. Wish we had more time, but alas, I think we know the answers. It's just that sometimes as people, for whatever reason, people are not doing what they should be doing. They're doing the wrong things. I want to thank you, Dr. Bourne and Mrs. Johnson Mitchell. Thank you for being with us. And thank you, listeners and viewers, for being with us today. Join us again tomorrow as we look at other topical and controversial issues. Visit the Love 101 FM YouTube channel and Facebook page for this and all other Love 101 FM programs. And of course, download our app, the Love 101 app, and stay connected to us, the family station, Love 101 FM, the number one gospel station in Jamaica. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and to our guests. Join me again tomorrow as I look at other issues of the day. I am Stokeley Marshall, handing you back to Love in the Morning with Jukal.
Time on Love 101 is now 8 a.m. and you are now invited to listen to Forward in Faith, brought to you by the New Testament Church of God in Bayside, Portmore.